everybody. Today we're going to take a look at making a Jasmine Star Stitch coaster. I make it with Lion Brand 24/7 mercerized cotton. Let me pull up one of these. You can see if you look at the details of the yarn that it's textured. That's mercerized. It's lovely. It's a sturdy yarn. The Lion Brand 24/7 mercerized cotton comes in beautiful, vibrant colors, more subtle, calm colors, lots of colors. It's one of my favorite yarns to work with, and it really makes these lovely, sturdy coasters. And this Jasmine Star Stitch is made up of these little floral petals that are clusters of loops held together by what I call a joint stitch. I don't know if there's an official name for it, but I'm going to call it a join stitch or a joint stitch that holds the clusters together. I used 2 rows of single crochet as the border. Single crochet is really underrated as a border, I think, especially if you're wanting to highlight the beauty of a stitch in the main body of the work. Single crochet really frames it wonderfully. I've already dug into this skein of yarn, as you can see, but it's such a bright color and I just love it. So again, check out Lion Brand 24/7 cotton yarn. I am not getting paid to promote that yarn, but I really love it. So you will be happy with yourself if you can find some. All right, you'll need a skein of that yarn. You'll need scissors, of course. You'll need a tapestry needle for weaving in yarn ends quickly. That really helps. It's got a nice wide eye there. For the main body of the coaster, you're going to need a 4mm crochet hook, also called size G, but sometimes the letters are different from the millimeters depending on the manufacturer of the hook. So the important information is that it's a 4mm crochet hook, or if you can only find 3.75 or 4.25, those will suit you just fine. This is Clover Brand. I just picked this up for myself as a little treat because I had a coupon. And then for the border, you're going to need to go up in your hook size to a 6mm crochet hook. All right, so that's what we've got here. That's what we're going to do. All right, you're going to start with a, let's see, let me pull some working yarn out. We'll start with our slip stitch knot here. And if you don't know how to make this, you can go to my You Can Crochet micro lessons. The very first one teaches you how to make this knot. I won't spend much time on that here. Then I'm going to take my smaller hook, the 4mm hook, and put it into the loop, yarn over, and pull it through that loop. And then you're going to want to pull up. And this is maybe, usually I'll do it about a little bit longer than my thumbnail, or almost an inch long there of a loop, because that's going to be the basis for your first petal of the Jasmine Star Stitch. Then you're going to yarn over, and you will put the crochet hook back into this first chain stitch. And I'm keeping it real. Sometimes I have to struggle with the yarn, but I don't edit this out because you need to know that even if you've been crocheting since 1977, sometimes the yarn gives you a little trouble. All right, then yarn under, pull that loop through just the beginning stitch there, and then pull up. All right, so you've got 3 even loops on your hook. Take a look, make sure your work looks like my work. Yarn over, back into that beginning chain stitch, yarn under, pull that loop through, and pull it up. You have to work with it a little bit. The Jasmine Star Stitch takes some patience at first, and then your muscle memory will kick in after a while. All right, so you've got, oops, let me move these scissors out of the way. All right, so you've got 5 loops on the hook. Now watch carefully. We're going to yarn over, and you see this bit of yarn behind your hook right there? You want to hold that, and you need to hold that and the base of your stitch, okay? Make sure it looks like this. And then you're going to pull that loop through, all 5 loops on your hook, but you're holding this bit of yarn here. So this is going to be a little tight. You want it tight. Tight is right. And then you put your hook between the cluster of loops and this bit of yarn that you were holding. So now it looks like this. Then you're going to yarn under, stabilize the base of this cluster right here, pull this yarn through just this bit here. Now you've got 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook, and you've got your very first petal of your first Jasmine Star Stitch. All right, so if you need to rewind, if you got confused, rewind, pause it at each little mini step and do it again. I'm trying to do this really close to the camera so that you can see, so it's not confusing, and so that you can see that I badly need a manicure, but I'm trying to let my nails grow out and get healthy again before I get back into all that. All right, let me pull some of this yarn out so I can get some more working yarn. It's caught on something in there. There we go. Okay. Now, this right here is what I'm going to be calling the joint stitch. So I'm going to pull this loop up a little bit, just like I did the very first loop I pulled through, okay? And then yarn over, and then put my hook back into the joint stitch. I'll pull that closer so you can see the joint stitch right there. Yarn under, pull up a loop, and make those even. Pull it a little bit so you've got 3 even loops on your hook. Then yarn over. You're going to go back into that joint stitch. Yarn under. Pull that through the joint stitch only and pull that up and make it even, and you've got 5 even loops on your crochet hook. Now we're going to close this petal off. Yarn over, and remember, just like with the first petal, I am going to stabilize this yarn behind the hook. I'm going to pinch it between my thumb and my index finger, and I'm going to pull this yarn through all 5 loops on the hook, and it's going to be tight because you're holding that. It's going to be kind of hard to pull that through, and that is right. It's the way you want it to be. And then you'll pull that up, and then you put your loop in between the petal or the cluster and that piece of yarn that you were holding, just like that. Then yarn under, pull up a loop. You've got 2 loops on your hook, and then we're going to close that off. Yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook, and there we've got our 2 first petals. We're going to make 5 for the base. Let's pull up again, pull that loop up, yarn over, your hook goes into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull through and pull up so you've got 3 even loops on your hook, yarn over, put your hook back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull that through, and we've got the 5 loops of our petal, even, nice and even. Yarn over, stabilize that back piece of yarn, pull through, and then put the hook between the 5 loops of this cluster petal and the yarn that you were holding. Yarn under, pull that through. You've got 2 loops on your hook now. Yarn over and close that joint stitch, and that's 3. Pull that loop up again. I'm going to do this whole foundation row with you, okay, so that you can get used to it. Yarn over, our hook goes into the base or the joint stitch. Yarn under, pull a loop through, pull it up so you've got 3 even loops on your hook. Yarn over, put the hook into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull that through, pull it up. You've got 5 even loops on your hook. We're ready to close it off. Yarn over, hold that back bit of yarn, pull the loop through all 5 loops on the hook, put the hook in between the petal and this back bit of yarn, yarn under, pull it up. Look, you've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, and we've closed it off, and now we've got 4 petals. 1 more for the base row. Pull that loop up, yarn over, the hook goes into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop. You've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, the hook goes back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, 5 even loops on your hook, yarn over, hold that back bit steady, pull the loop through the 5 loops, put the hook in between the cluster petal and that bit of yarn you were holding, yarn under, pull it up, 2 loops now on the hook, yarn over, close those 2 loops. All right, we've got the 5 base stitches for our Jasmine Star Stitch. Now you're going to turn it this way. Now we're going to make another petal, and the petal is going to serve as kind of the side wall to the second row. So I'm going to pull this loop up that's already on my hook, yarn over, and I'm going to put my hook into that joint stitch and pull it through. And just like before, we've got 3 even-ish loops on the hook. Let me pull out some more working yarn here. All right, there we go. Yarn over, the hook goes back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull it up, and pull that up, and you've got, sometimes this first loop is a little looser than the rest, but if they're mostly even, that's good. You've got 5 loops on the hook, and we're going to close this off. So that's yarn over, stabilize this back bit of yarn, pull the rest of it through. It's tight, that's good. The hook goes between the petal cluster and this piece of yarn you were holding. Yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, close it. Now this is kind of the side wall to the second row. Now we're going to make a petal that we don't close, because then now we're working in a series of 3 petals and we close them all together at the same time. And you have no idea what I mean yet, but you will in a second. All right, so pull that up, just like how you start every other petal. Yarn over, put your hook into this joint stitch, yarn under, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, hook goes back into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull that up. I just hit my camera, I'm sorry. Now I've got 5 loops on the hook and we are not going to close it. Now go back to the joint stitch that is at the corner of the 5th petal and the wall petal of the second row, right here in the corner there. You're going to yarn over, put your hook into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, your hook goes back into that joint, that same joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, and you've got 4 more loops on the hook, so 5 plus 4. Now we're going to make 1 more petal. Yarn over, identify the next joint stitch, put the hook into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, put your hook back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, 4 more stitches. So you've got 4 plus 4 plus 5. Now we're ready to close it. And this takes some patience and some practice and maybe lots of redoing it. Even now, sometimes the hooks go, or the loops go crazy on my hook and I have to kind of start over. So watch me closely. This is where you want to remember that we want to keep this joint stitch tight. Yarn over, hold this yarn tightly. Then you're going to pull this all the way through all of these loops. Sometimes the hook will get caught. It might get caught in this tutorial later on. We'll see. You just be patient with yourself because it's a lovely stitch and it's worth the trouble. And then put the hook between this last cluster of 4 and the yarn you were just holding. Yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, close it off. So you can see we've got our base row of 5 petals. we've got this petal here that forms the wall of the second row, and then we've got 3 of the petals of the Jasmine Star Stitch here. And we're going to continue in this pattern here. Pull up your loop a little more, yarn over. We're going to go into this joint stitch that we just finished. Put your hook in there, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, put the hook back through that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, and pull those all up so they're nice and even, at least as even as you can get them. And then remember, we're not closing this off yet. Yarn over. Now we're going into the joint stitch at the base of the cluster that we had just finished down here on the bottom row. So put your hook into that one, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, put the hook back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop. So that's 5, and now 4, and we're going to do another petal. Yarn over, identify the next joint stitch, hook goes into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, the hook goes in, yarn under, pull up a loop. So I've got 4 and 4 and 5, yarn over, stabilize that back yarn, and pull it through, and you see here it is getting caught on these loops a little bit. Looks like I got it there. Okay, and then our hook goes between that last cluster and the yarn I was just holding, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, and close it off. All right, I'm going to see if I can go a little more quickly in this next one. This seems complicated now maybe to some of you. But your muscle memory will start to get it, and you'll start to really familiarize yourself with the architecture of each stitch. And the more you do it, the more you'll really see what you're doing, and then you'll just be able to do this while you're watching a movie or listening to your audiobook or whatever. All right, so pull up that loop, yarn over, the hook goes into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up. So you've got 4 plus 4 plus 5, ready to close it, yarn over, stabilize that back piece, pull through all the loops in the world. Now this came up a little looser than I want it to be, so I'm going to put my hook that way. If it comes up a little further than you want this loop because you're wanting it tight, just tighten it back up once you have your hook through here. All right, and I'm closing that off. Pardon me when my hook hits my camera. All right, pull that up, yarn over, into the joint, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the joint, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into the next joint, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, 4 plus 4 plus 5, over the hook, stabilize the yarn, pull the loop through nice and tight, whoopsie, in between there, yarn under, pull up, close it off. Pull that loop up. Watch me as we do the last one on this row. Yarn over into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over into that same joint stitch, yarn under, pull up. Now we're at the end of the row. Oh no. So right here, this last bit of yarn at the end is where we're aiming with our hook, all right, for this last cluster. All right, so, whoops, yarn over, into that space, yarn under. You might have to stabilize that beginning knot a little bit. Pull up, yarn over, back into that same space, yarn under, pull up, and we're back to 4 plus 4 plus 5. We're going to close it off, yarn over, hold that bit of yarn all the way through all of these loops. Whoopsie. And then put our hook back in there, yarn under, pull up, close it off. There, isn't that pretty? We've got a great start. We're going to do 5 rows up. I'm going to get you going on the next row, and then you can kind of pause and rewind and go as slow as you need to, because we don't need to walk step by step through the whole rest of it. So, all right, so you're here. Now turn it over like a page of a book. Now you're going to pull that loop up. We're going to make our next wall stitch right here. All right. Yarn over, into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, and we're going to close this one off because it's the wall stitch. It's not part of a petal. Stabilize that, your piece of yarn there, pull it through. The hook goes between the petal and that yarn. Yarn under, pull up, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, close it off. All right, now we're going to make our first 3 cluster stitch. Pull that up, yarn over, hook goes into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, back into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up. Don't close that off. Find this base joint stitch here, yarn over, the hook goes into that joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, back into that same joint stitch, yarn under, pull up. Now you've got 4 plus 5. Find the next joint stitch, yarn over, into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up, yarn over, into that next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up. We're going to close it off now, yarn over, stabilize that yarn, pull it through. You want to keep it tight. The hook goes between that last petal and the yarn you were just holding. I hit the camera again. 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, close it off. So what you're going to do is do this 3 petal cluster all the way to the end, and remember the very last petal gets crocheted. You're going to want to crochet that into this very last cluster stitch here. Okay, so you're going to do that until there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, 5 wall stitches that you'll count. All right, and so I'm going to see you back at the end there. The rest of these rows are worked just the way we've been doing these. And so you can pause, rewind, or let me know in the comments if you have any questions about it. But I'm going to get myself to that point and then come back to the video. All right, I finished most of my rows. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to finish the last cluster of 3 here. I'm pulling up that loop, yarn over, into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, into the joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, into the next joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, into the next joint, into the same joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, into that side joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, back into that side joint stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop. We're going to close it off, hold that, pull that loop through, keep it tight, put the hook between that last cluster petal and the yarn you were holding, yarn under, pull it up, 2 loops on the hook, and let's close it off. All right, now, so pretty. I am going to switch hooks to the larger hook. All right, so I've done that. I'm going to rotate this. So I've got the side, and I'm going to chain 1. Then I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this corner space. 1, 2. Now, you can look at the side of this petal here. You've got 2 pieces of yarn there that are pretty easy. Insert the hook there. I think I caught 3, 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. Don't go too far into the stitch. You just want the single crochet secured into the side of that stitch. Yarn under, pull it up, yarn over, pull it up. Oh, that's my front door lock, pardon me. And then the hook goes into this hole here, which is the joint stitch. Yarn under, pull it up, complete the single crochet. If you don't know single crochet, I've got a tutorial for that in the You Can Crochet micro lesson series on my YouTube channel. Now look here, you're going to find 2 pieces of yarn again, 2 or 3, and complete your single crochet, and then a single crochet into the next joint stitch. So the pattern going around is a single crochet into the side of the petal, and then a single crochet into the joint stitch, and then a single crochet into the side of the petal, and a single crochet into the joint stitch. Let's get to the corner. Oopsie, sometimes this happens with yarn, and I'm not going to edit this out. We're going to just handle it right here, live in this video. All right, there we go. Let me pull out some more working yarn. All right, single crochet into the side, single crochet into the joint stitch. Now our very first little piece of yarn right here, I'm going to show you a trick. You've got your tail, that first tail, fold that over. Single crochet over both of those, because I'm going to show you how to take care of that working yarn so you don't have to spend extra time weaving that in later. All right, single crochet. Now find that tail again and fold it back over, and you're going to single crochet back over that into this corner space, and then again crochet over that tail into this corner space. So you've crocheted 3 single crochets into the corner space. That secures a corner shape for you, and we've taken the tail back that way and then back this way, and that secures the tail from unraveling. You want to keep the tail aligned over here, and you're going to crochet over it so that that continues to secure it in and you don't have to spend extra time weaving it in. So let's find those 2 loops on the side of this petal. And single crochet. And single crochet into this joint stitch, and single crochet into the next petal. Whoopsie. And into the next joint stitch. All right, we don't need to perseverate in this little detail all the way around, so just keep going with the pattern. First of all, keep crocheting over the tail yarn until it's done, not there anymore, but you're going to crochet into the petal, the joint stitch, the petal, the joint stitch, and then when you get to the corner, find the best space in the stitch at the corner and do 3 single crochets at each corner, and I will meet you back around when we get to our first edge again. All right, I've come back around at that last single crochet, and I'm back to that front space, and you remember we did a chain 1 and then 2 single crochets. I'm going to add a single crochet here into the same space. So now we've got 3 single crochets into this corner, and then I'm going to look at the first chain stitch that we made, insert my hook there, and I'm going to join my loop to that chain stitch with a slip stitch. Then chain 1, and then back into this, I'm going to do 2 single crochets if the yarn will stay on my hook. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to single crochet in each single crochet around, and when you get to the corner, remember you've got 3 single crochets at the corner. Find those, 1, 2, 3. In that second one, that middle one in the corner is when you're going, that's where you're going to put 3 additional single crochets. So that's 3 crochets making another corner, continuing that corner shape there. All right, so in every corner you find the second single crochet and you put 3 single crochets into that one all the way around. So we'll do that and I'll meet you back. All right, we're back at the end here. I'm going to do my last single crochet into that space. And then I need to switch back to the smaller hook for this. It usually helps me to do that. I am going to join these with a slip stitch, go back into that initial loop there, that first single crochet, yarn under, pull through, join with a slip stitch. There we go. All right, now keep the hook in there so you don't lose that loop. Give yourself several inches here. And cut. Thank you, working yarn. All right, now to finish this off, if you already have your own preferred way of finishing off a project, well then you can leave this be and finish off as you prefer. But if you like to see how I do it, then I just yarn over and pull through and then tighten that down. Now I don't like for this knot to be super obvious there, okay? So here's what I do. I take my tapestry needle and thread it. There we go. All right, now let's take a look at this. I can kind of make that knot disappear by going back into the same stitch from front to back and pulling, and that kind of pulls the knot into the stitch a little bit and it's less obvious. Okay, now then I turn over and then I just find loops of the yarn to put the needle through. You want to put this through for several inches and maybe even back and forth a little bit. I'll just show you how I do it. It's not a precise formula. The idea is to do it kind of invisibly and not exactly straight through, so that the yarn won't come loose easily. Hang on, I got a notification on my phone here. There we go. Okay. Let's see, maybe we want to do this. It'll hide nicely through the petal. And then maybe here. And hide nicely through this petal. And then maybe back up through here. And then we've probably done enough. And then I want to pull that to make sure it's even. And then we can clip it off right there. And there we go. We are done. Isn't that lovely? Makes a lovely addition to this nice saturated color set. I think I'm also going to do a thing where I just do 3 and a border and stitch them together for a multicolored placemat set. You'll know about that when I do it. That's an idea that I had the other day. So that's how to do it. And when I first learned Jasmine Star Stitch, I had to watch tutorials multiple times, pause, slow down, but now I can just do them almost in my sleep. So be patient with yourself. Don't be afraid to undo your work. Remember, we call that frogging. And, you know, give yourself a lot of time, and then eventually it'll be second nature to you. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about this, or if you have requests for other types of tutorials, please let me know in the comments. Please like this video. I have this brand new baby little YouTube channel, and that will help this tutorial get to the right people when they do a search. You can also subscribe to my channel. That sure helps me out as well. And if you think a fellow crocheter would enjoy this tutorial, please share it with them. Encourage them to watch it. I surely do appreciate it. And if you want to see my finished projects plus any written patterns that I make, I don't make too many of those, but those are all available at figbasketcrochet.com. I appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.